everyone. Welcome to Humanize IT. Today we have Jonathan Crow on, and from Ninja One. He's also a proud sponsor of Humanize IT's podcast. But we're here today to talk about backups and bandwidths. The kind of the more of the origin story of how Jonathan came up with this idea. Where did it come from? And where are we at today? So, Jonathan, can you give us a little bit of the origin story here, the superhero origin story?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. And Adam, thanks for having me on. Big fan of the podcast and everything you guys are doing. Um, yeah, love any chance I get to talk about backups and bandwidth. I am absolutely psyched. And I have to credit you for being such an instrumental part of it. Being a player, early player, being a DM. Also, you were like one of the first voices that really was responding to this and really got me going. We got you get ideas as a marketer and you try things out and you need those early folks who are like, yes, that's a great idea, and respond to really keep you going. And I remember you and I met at I think it was a Build It.
IT by Design, Build It. Yeah.
Yeah, we met at that show and I was wearing a Backups and Bandwidth shirt, and you like saw this out of a crowd and like came up to me and were like, yes, what is that? And that really started off a whole conversation and partnership and everything. So
If you guys haven't seen the video, I can't remember where I posted. If I posted it on Humanize IT's YouTube channel, maybe I'll link it to this podcast. It's Jonathan and I sitting in a McLaren from Halo.
That's right.
He's wearing his backups and bandwidth shirts, and we're just talking about these concepts. And so you see somebody else with a D20 shirt on, something like that's like immediately friend.
That's your people, that's your tribe, right? So yeah, in terms of the concept of how it happened, it really starts with the fact that prior to joining Ninja, I joined at the end of 2018. I was at an endpoint security startup, and so I was operating, in the security space, and I became aware of Black Hills Information Security, and they do a thing called backdoors and breaches. And it's around incident response, and it's tabletopping, right? So tabletopping is something that for I think everybody probably knows at this point, but and just in case you don't, it's where you basically run through practice scenarios with your team, and the whole idea is you want to be prepared before you have to run through the real thing, right? You want to drill and practice, and I think this is common through a lot of different practices, but in cybersecurity, it's pretty well established because in those incident response situations, you're feeling the heat of the moment. Like there's so many things to consider. You definitely want to be well drilled and well prepared. And Adam, I know this goes right into your background too.
Yeah, I have a joke of I tell people like, one of my favorite companies is Monaheim. People are like, oh, it's not a real pen test, and then they go on rants about what a real pen test is. And I come from critical infrastructure, and so our tabletops they involved the DoD. Like, so when you talk about pen tests and testing out different things, I guarantee you there are very few of you out there who understand what a real pen test is if you want to go down that route. Like when you're talking about drone strikes on substations, or like you're talking about like various like infiltration tactics, and you're sitting back and watching this, like just holy crap. But you don't think about things like pandemics. You don't think about things like what happens to your staff if there's a large blizzard. Are they going to take care of your company first, or are they going to take care of their families first? Are they going to be concerned with this or that if there's a tornado hitting your town? And so these things are only discoverable when you run a tabletop, a mock exercise. And in corporate environment, we do it because we have resources for that. But small businesses don't think of it very often. So when they do get hit by a large sapphire plague of blue screens, or they get hit by a large outage, a whole bunch of other things happen to their business that they did not plan on that could have been avoided. And thus the tabletop is born.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you set it up right. I mean, this traditionally, I think historically, it's come more from the corporate enterprise environment. It's the whole concept of red teaming, having benign security incidents that you can practice on before you're facing the real thing. And that was obviously limited to people. It was a lot of
Yeah,
times something that was instigated or practiced by an external, specialist, and you got to be in a position to be able to afford that to bring that on
in
and
the
everything, right?
corporate environment, we refer to it as BCDR. So you got BC, which is business continuity, which is a huge priority for major corporations. How do you maintain business continuity given different events? And DR is just a small subset of that. But if you talk to MSPs, DR is everything. How do you fail over? How do you, get a new device to a client? How do you recover from a malware attack? That is just like 10% of BC. So business continuity planning, and you don't think at this level until you get to a large corporation and you see one of these incidents firsthand. You're like, oh crap, we need to plan that stuff better. We have we have hundreds of millions of dollars at stake here if we don't plan this appropriately. For a small flower shop, they're like, okay, I'm down for an hour, no big deal. But for a corporation, they're like, we need to plan out how we're going to maintain business continuity given these events.
Yeah, and I would argue too that a lot of these things that are good practices, this goes for technology, it goes for capabilities. A lot of things that start off in enterprise eventually work their way down market, and that's a good thing, right? It's
Yes.
like, democratizing, cybersecurity knowledge and skills and resilience. There's those skills that start off at the top, like the people who can afford specialists and very expensive technology, and then these things over time are able to kind of trickle down, and that's a good thing, right? And
Yes.
so going back to the origin of backups and bandwidth, um, I looked at what Black Hills was doing. And for anyone who's not familiar, so backdoors and breaches, um, it's really designed. They were championing this idea of tabletoping, and it's a card based game, and it's really designed for incident response specialists, for security specialists, right? And it's for them to be able to play through and really talk with, as an MSP, talking with your clients or prospective clients. If you're internal IT, talking with your broader company and getting those conversations to start happening. What happens when we're facing this? What if X is down or compromised? What does that look like? What needs to happen next? And it's getting those conversations. Where are we lacking in certain areas? It's an awesome way to get those conversations going. Huge fan of it. And I was actually going down the path with them of, maybe we could create. This is cool, but like, what about regular just sysadmin work? Why is this like security specialist? This isn't the only area the only types of role that could really benefit from these exercises, right? It doesn't always have to be those catastrophic incidents that you're preparing for. You should be practicing the more basic stuff too. And these are things that you can help with getting new hires trained up more quickly. But there are also scenarios that, like, just because it doesn't involve like a nation state actor doing crazy, infiltration and being able to track that down. I think for backdoors and breaches, what really kind of hit me was seeing MSPs and other IT people running through this. In a lot of cases, they're not going to be doing the actual forensics and investigation. In a lot of cases, they shouldn't. This should be like your cyber insurance company firm has their preferred incident response provider specialists. They're the ones who are going to be actually running through these exercises. And so cool that that's happening, but maybe there's a more appropriate way that we can get um, MSP technicians and sysadmins being able to adopt this whole concept of tabletopping too. So what does that look like? And that's really where backups and bandwidth came from.
Yeah. So tell me about like what was like the first episode? What was the first thing you guys did?
Yeah, yeah. So
Like
we
I
actually
saw the shirts is what I first saw,
yeah.
but I want to know like what was like the first like actual tabletop you guys ran?
So we started it off on World Backup Day, I think 2 years ago, maybe three. Jeez, I don't know. Time is weird. But we started off on a World Backup Day. It was kind of, this is going to be a single event. We didn't think about it being potentially broader than that. I mean, I had some visions and plans in my head, but we wanted to start off there. And so we started off around a World Backup Day, and we had our Ninja One offers backup, and we have a product manager named Dan Myers. And what made this perfect is that Dan not only is obviously very knowledgeable in backup, he is a former MSP, so he knows what the job is like day to day. He actually has that insight. And then also he plays D&D. He is a dungeon master. Like, he has that experience, and so he's able to set a story going, establish a narrative, and make it fun. Think on the fly. All these cool skills that you have too, Adam. And so from there, we basically set up a backup disaster recovery scenario where we got I think at that point we got three or maybe four players, and we had some folks who were at Ninja. We had some external folks. I think Tom Lawrence was maybe one of the first players, and so we're trying to get a good mix of folks who are good on screen and they're fun and they know the tech, and then also some operators too, like people who are actually in these roles currently, so they can walk through, well, here's the type of troubleshooting I would do, and like I've been trained to do. And because we wanted to have a good mix, right, to establish this balance of, okay, this is entertaining, this is a whole new concept, you're playing D&D but it's IT, and so it needs to be fun. We need to like be able to like uh roll with it and get into character and have some fun with that. At the same time, it needs to be rooted and grounded in reality, right? Like, we wanted that's the key part of it. We wanted this to actually have that value of, I think our tagline that we've landed on is, the fires are fake but the fixes are real. Like, we
Yes.
wanted to actually make it so, okay, we're having fun with these characters, Steve, the orc boss, all that stuff. But at the end, you're doing real troubleshooting and you're exercising those muscles in a real way that you can go back. And when you see these things unfold in your job, you're actually exercising, like, you're uncovering, okay, what are the gaps we have in our processes right now that we need to fix? Who, like, going through the actual good takeaways that you're getting from a real tabletop exercise.
Yeah, and I think it's a hard balance. Like, if you
Yeah.
ever get on the calls with Jonathan and I, like, we get off topic a lot, but like a lot of it's like, how do we make this magical, mythical universe exist, but be applicable to today? So just we had one recently where somebody was talking in chat like, I want that feature. Why does that software exist? And I was like, actually, that's how Ninja RMM's backup solution exists. And then it was like a quick little advertisement there. Like, we're just having fun, but I wanted to concrete and anchor this in the fact that when we're using tools, when we're troubleshooting problems, it's things that actually exist. So instead of sending out a couple interns, we have Scrippy. Scrippy can follow very set instructions and can do things for you. But you have to have a plan and it has to be followable. Now, what does that equate to in the real world? Those tier one techs you just hired, you have to give them this. You can't just say, go figure that out. You can say, I need you to go on site and I need you to run these 16 things and report back to me. That is a real world thing. We just call it Scrippy. He's a little imp that's made out of parchment, and
I
we
think
have
AI
different
too, right? Like, I mean, this kind of goes into
Yeah.
that. I mean, like, you have to lay out a clear plan. What are the clear instructions for this automation, this automaton to be able to
Yes.
carry out for you? Yeah,
Yeah, and being able to like map those things into reality, like the mechanics have to be actual. And
absolutely.
so there's something called hard sci-fi out there. If anybody ever has read hard sci-fi, have you read any hard sci-fi, Jonathan?
I Give me some examples
Okay.
because I think I know where you're going, but yeah.
So when you read a book like The Martian,
Yeah.
or you read a book like Hail Mary, and even The Expanse, these are called hard sci-fi. They can't have teleportation, things that we don't know how to do today. Like that's magic. So Star Trek has a lot of magic in it. But things like The Expanse, things like Hail Mary, The Martian, and a lot of other books of that genre are near future events that are realistic. Think like Black Mirror.
Yep.
These ideas where you can have a fantasy world where you're thinking through real things. Like this technology actually exists. Bobaverse is another good example. They can't use mechanics in there and just make mystical things. It has to be based in actual reality. And we're trying to do that with backups and bandwidths. Where yes, we do have Scrippy, but he equates to a real world thing. Yes, we have zombies. Now, I learned that one from the CDC actually. The CDC couldn't get people to pay attention to pandemic best practices. This is back in like 2010.
Yeah.
And so they came out with the zombie apocalypse guide. You go to the CDC's website, there is a zombie apocalypse guide.
Yep.
And people looked at it and they read it and they followed it. And they like, just out of humor, they have these zombie apocalypse kits.
Do
And
you
it
remember?
prepares them for a number of scenarios.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do the same thing with like our backups and banners. Like there's a flavor you can add on with zombies that's supposed to replicate the idea of like, what if there's a blizzard where people are unavailable? Okay,
Yeah.
these people are now zombies. You cannot use them. There's a pandemic or there's a flu going around that's just taking people out left and right. Let's get this applied on top of the blue screen of death thing that's going on. So you got a major outage going on, and you have people that are out because of this flu epidemic that's going on. That's a
It's
zombie apocalypse. So adding in fun, but making it based in reality,
right.
that's something that's interesting to do. And Jonathan and I spent a lot of time arguing about this or discussing this on our calls. Like, okay, how do we make this more fantasy based?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think,
I think it makes me think too of like, you know, the worst case survival um things. There's the books, there's the game, you know. But I think the you know what's the whole point of this? It's really like if you want to go through training. I mean, we've all gone through our basic training. We start a new job, right? And we have to go through the onboarding and watch the videos and everything.
yep,
And most of it, I mean, come on, like who has this that's actually like fun or interesting? Like you're pretty bored with it. You just kind of slog through it. You don't really retain a lot. People are always looking for ways to make awareness training, security awareness training, other trainings, you know, more interesting and engaging, right?
yep,
Because not only because it'll get people actually into it, if you're into it, you're going to retain things more, right? And so the whole idea is that at the end of the day, we want people to be adopting tabletopping, and because we truly believe that it's one thing to have things documented or think you have them documented. It's another to actually go through and run a practice
yep,
drill, right? And so it's a great way to really uncover what you do have prepared and what you don't. It's a great way to actually make your team work together, uncover things, get to know each other, um, practice these things through. And so we want to really facilitate that. And this is a way that, aside from just, you know, we want to stand out and get people's attention and make them have fun with it, you know, like just get people into the activity
yep.
itself, looking forward to it, having fun with it, bringing their own thing to it. And so that's really kind of our whole goal with this. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a reason why this is in a lot of the compliance families. Do you do tabletops once a year? Do you testings? It's the age old edge. It's in every sysadmin's handbook, right? If you haven't tested your backups, you don't have backups. And I have, and every person at least of my age has seen at least one disaster scenario where they thought they had a plan
Yep.
and the plan did not exist. They thought they had backups, but the backups had not been validated and tested. And even the validation checks might have been working, but you did not do test restores. That's why it's in almost every compliance handbook. Same thing with tabletops. When you start playing with the big boys, people, tabletops are a requirement. You have to tabletop. Did you tabletop your recovery scenarios at the very least? You don't have to actually run through them. You don't have to actually like do a fail over to the restore site and back, but you should. And so that's what comes out of tabletops a lot of times. Like, hey, we have this hot site. When was the last time we failed there and failed back? Well, that could cause disruption to business. Yeah, but can we do that disruption during a time when it's going to be least impactful? And we want to get to a spot where we can fail over and back without business knowing. And so
Absolutely.
these things come out of tabletops and they become a requirement. And so you can bring these professional level services to your smaller clients, what I call small clients, like 500 member organizations, where they're growing and they need to be ready for these things. And you want to be there for them and say, hey, look, I see that you've reached about 500 employees. We really need to start running tabletops with you to talk about how you're in the South, how hurricane's going to affect you, how flooding's going to help you or hurt you, how a flu epidemic will hurt you. We need to test these things. Are your calling trees working? Are people going to come into work? You know, what's involved here? Can you work from Canada? And we're going to fly everybody up to Canada while this hurricane passes. What does this look like? And so as an MSP, you can run these tabletops and we're giving you scenarios. You can come and it's like, oh, I'm not creative. I don't know how to build these.
Yeah.
Cool. Just go download one from Ninja's site. We'll have scenarios. We're going to come out with one a month. And here you go. What do you want to test?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one thing that when we're putting these scenarios together, Adam, you and I have kind of gone back and forth, and there's, I think where we've landed, there's, what we do on the actual live streams, we lean more into like the fantasy realm and everything, right? But when we're making the downloadable scenarios, we want to make it easy for folks to be able to say, like, if they're doing it internally and you have a team who like will respond to this and get into it, and want to roll some dice, awesome. We can have a version of that, and then we can also make it very easy to take away those elements and have something a little bit more straightforward too. But hearing you talk about that, I was reminded of another kind of core seed of this idea. It wasn't that long after I joined Ninja that there were some pretty massive security incidents in our world, where there was the SolarWinds incident, there was Kaseya, and all of a sudden, incident response became a huge topic. And not only isolated incident response, but especially for the MSPs out there, um, the idea of having to run triage on your entire client base at one time. We saw this more recently with the CrowdStrike incident, which our most recent backups and bandwidth scenario was built around, to kind of modeled around anyway. And just that idea that not you may think you have a process set for one client, but what's it look like when you have your whole client base and then you get into a whole world of different discussions? You're not just talking about troubleshooting, like you pointed out in the last session. Troubleshooting is the fun part, right? We can do that. It's also, you have to take into account how are you prioritizing your clients? Which one needs service more first? Have you done a business impact analysis on them? Those types of questions, having those conversations ahead of time is just so crucial. You don't want to be having those in the moment.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we tested that. And the goal of the last scenario we did was like the troubleshooting was there. It was a situation they were really familiar with because it was high profile news.
Yeah.
And so the goal there when we wrote the story for that tabletop was to distract them. And the actual like problem that we were troubleshooting there was, are they aware of their client base? Do they know who their clients are and how to reach out to them no matter where they are in the sales funnel? And sometimes with smaller MSPs, when you're rapidly growing, you have one person who's all in their head.
Yes.
You lose track of like, oh crap, we forgot about these three people. Steve was onboarding them and he was taking care of it because they were like, he's just trying to get things done, trying to get customers in, and just hadn't added them to the PSA yet. And these things happen in the real world. And I wanted to distract a bit, but encourage, like, are you sure you have all your customers? Are you sure you've notified everybody of this outage? And at the end, it was crap. We should have reached out to Steve. They had sent Steve away. And so Steve was unable to tell them, oh, and by the way, can you check and make sure these three people are okay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also get into the account management side of it, right?
Yep.
The people component. You're dealing with, like, in these scenarios, you've got your own team. They're now suddenly under a lot of stress. And you're having to do damage control with clients who may be yelling at you, freaking out, wanting to know what's going on. A lot of that happened at one time. And so, yeah, there's just so many different aspects that a lot of times you probably don't want to be thinking about, right? Like that's not the
Yep.
fun role playing part of it. But if you make the whole exercise a more standard practice, like, hey, we're going to go through some different scenarios, we're going to make this a regular thing. We're constantly seeking to improve, to uncover where we're weak, to where we need some work to be able to improve. It's such a cool thing to get into the habit of. And so really, again, like that's kind of our big driver. You know, Adam, during the last scenario, you brought this up of um you know, dealing with clients that, um, you know, could be in a scenario where I think you were using the flood example. Um, you know, there's people that you may not be able to get a hold of. At the
Yep.
same time, you also have your own team that like their priorities in a situation like that are not going to be, hey, I need to get into work. They're going to be, I need to take care of my family and things like that. So I mean, it uncovers a whole thing of things to make sure that when these situations do unfold, you've got at least a basic plan or workaround
Yep.
for.
Yeah, and I love backcast surveillance. You know, it's a passion project for me as well. I'm always like, okay, how can I help? How can I be more involved? Like, and I think there's lots of other people who are just passionate about this project, and so I love how you've cultivated this kind of culture that's coming up. You know, and I'm looking forward to our future scenarios. We've got some
Absolutely.
really fun ones coming up that we've been hammering on. And in fact, I just sent you one as a DM here during this podcast. I'm like, oh, here's an idea. And so I don't think we'll ever run out of ideas. But
No,
the
no,
idea
and
that's a tabletop for you. That is why tabletops are awesome. We're gonna
yeah,
throw something at you and just see how a Tom or a Kyle or an Amanda how they're going to respond to it because they may come up with things that I am not aware of. And as a DM, I got to look at my tables over here. If I always, whenever you say roll, I'm looking at a table over here trying to figure out how complicated this thing is.
right.
And they're coming up with new ideas. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. And now I've got to adapt to it as a DM because I want them to go down their line of thinking. They may have found a solution I have no idea on. My tech days are far removed.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of a tabletop. I'm
Well, and
looking
also
forward to a
too,
lot more of these, Jonathan. And I really, really am looking forward to what you're coming up with, around this environment. I know we got the rest of the year all the way to October planned, I think. So,
yeah, absolutely.
any
And I'm
final words for us?
yeah, I mean, you know, I'm excited. We also have it's such a cool opportunity to see some of these folks like Tom and like people who are just very skilled at their job. They've got a ton of history and knowledge, and we get to dive into we kind of like get to go inside their brain and go through okay, what's your thought process? We actually get to see that happen live, which is super cool. So Adam, I mean, thank you so much. I couldn't like none of this happens without you and a lot of the early folks who just responded so strongly to this. And I hope folks check it out, obviously. Check it out. And even if it's not specifically for you, the fantasy stuff, I mean, hopefully you still take away ideas for running tabletops because
The
it's
concepts.
just such a cool concept to get into for your team. I think it's good for skills wise, but also team building, all those things. And yeah, I hope you'll check it out. We have a lot of fun things in store, like you said. Appreciate the chance to get on here and talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for telling about the origin story. Hopefully, maybe we'll have more of these where we talk about like how did we get the last couple around, or have some guest stars and think about like where did we go with that? Why did it go that direction? What was the purpose of that scenario? So we'll just do more follow ups here. And thank you for coming on, Jonathan. I hope everybody enjoys this episode, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Adam. Bye, everyone.